During my sister's wedding, I felt labor pains and begged my mom, please, I need to go to the hospital. She coldly replied, hold it, this is your sister's big day. Then she locked me in the bathroom. I passed out in agony on the floor. When they finally opened the door, their screams shook the entire reception. Standing in front of the mirror in her spacious Victorian home in Boston's upscale Beacon Hill neighborhood, Emily Carter gently placed her hands on her rounded belly. Her 9-month pregnant body was filled with both the joy and weight of nurturing new life. The soft spring sunlight streaming through the window illuminated her skin, making her serene smile look as beautiful as a painting. Little angel, we'll meet soon, Emily whispered softly. On the bed lay an opened letter from her husband, Michael, a senior partner at a law firm. Michael was abroad on a business trip with an important client. He sent messages almost daily, expressing his love for his wife and their unborn baby. The sound of her ringing phone broke the silence. The screen displayed the word, Mom. Emily hesitated for a moment before answering. Emily, it's the final fitting for Sophia's wedding dress. You can come at 2 p.m. today, right? Elizabeth Bennet's voice was commanding as usual. It sounded like a question, but wasn't really a question at all. Mom, I'm not feeling well today. Surely not. You wouldn't refuse to help just because of your pregnancy when your sister's special day is approaching, would you? Elizabeth's voice was heavy with accusation. Emily took a deep breath. Of course, Mom. I'll be there. Elizabeth hung up, sounding satisfied. Emily sat down in a chair, looking tired. There was only 1 week until her sister Sophia's wedding to the famous heart surgeon Daniel Harris. For her mother, this wedding represented the culmination of years of social networking, a moment of glory. Elizabeth Bennet had established herself as a respected philanthropist in Boston's high society. But at home, she was a perfectionist with particularly high expectations for her younger daughter, Sophia. Beautiful and intelligent, Sophia had grown up meeting her mother's expectations, graduating from a top university and becoming successful in business. Now she was about to marry a young talent from a prestigious Boston medical family. Emily, on the other hand, had chosen a slightly different path from her mother's expectations. After graduating from a local university, she began working at a community legal aid organization. That's where she met Michael and got married. Now, at 36, she was finally expecting her first child. For Elizabeth, Emily's life choices were always insufficient: a modest job, an unimpressive wedding, and a too-late pregnancy. But now, her attention was solely focused on Sophia's perfect wedding. That afternoon at the bridal salon, Sophia gracefully wore her dress, while Elizabeth's eyes welled up with tears of joy. You look truly beautiful, Sophia, Elizabeth said dreamily. Everything is perfect. Emily smiled quietly, sincerely celebrating her sister's happiness. Sophia had a gentle personality, and there was no conflict between the sisters. However, part of her had unknowingly been influenced by her mother's values. Emily, you look lovely too, Sophia said, looking at her sister, but she hesitated, looking at Emily's large belly. Won't you stand out too much in the wedding photos, Emily? Emily was surprised. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that, Sophia hurried to explain. Elizabeth interrupted. What Sophia means is that all attention should be on the bride, not you. Just stand at the edge of the photos and be as unobtrusive as possible. Emily was about to say something when she winced from a sudden sharp pain. It passed quickly, but it indicated that something was beginning. The next day, Dr. Sarah Mitchell carefully checked Emily's condition during her regular checkup. The baby might be born earlier than expected, she said gently. Please rest especially well for the next week and contact me immediately if you notice any changes. When Emily told her mother this diagnosis, she saw Elizabeth's face cloud over. You mean you can't come to the wedding? Elizabeth's voice was cold. Do you realize how hurt Sophia will be? Mum, I want to come too. But the baby, Emily, you always only think about yourself, Elizabeth declared. This is the most important day in your sister's life. That night, Emily spoke with her husband on the phone. Michael said worriedly, you should listen to the doctor. Skip the wedding. But Michael, this is my sister's special day. Emily's voice faltered. Mother won't forgive me. Your health and the baby are the priority, Michael said firmly. I should be back the day after tomorrow. Don't push yourself until then. After hanging up, Emily sat by the window, gazing at the Boston skyline bathed in moonlight. She had always tried to meet her family's expectations. Her father, William in particular, was gentle and understanding. But he had little say at home, overpowered by Elizabeth's strong personality. Emily made her decision. She didn't want to ruin her sister's special day. Despite her complicated feelings toward her mother, she chose to attend the wedding. She wanted to believe it was her own decision. On the morning of the wedding day, the luxury resort Marigold Manor in the Boston suburbs was bustling with activity from early morning. In the crisp April air, hundreds of white roses and lilacs adorned the garden, vividly glistening in the sunlight. Emily took a deep breath as she looked down at the beautifully arranged wedding venue from her room window. The dull pain in her lower back that had started the night before still hadn't gone away. This morning, she gently placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "Please stay quiet just for today." With a knock, the door opened. "Emily, are you ready?" Elizabeth entered the room, wearing an elegant pale blue dress. "The makeup artist is already waiting in Sophia's room. Come quickly." "Good morning, Mum." Emily smiled and said, "Could I rest a little? I've been feeling a bit off since last night." Elizabeth interrupted her daughter. "Emily, today is Sophia's day. I don't have time to hear about your discomfort." She looked Emily up and down, frowning. "That dress, couldn't you find something that hides your figure better?" Emily looked down at her emerald green maternity dress. "This is the prettiest one, Mum, and it's comfortable to move in." "Fine," Elizabeth said resignedly. "Just come to Sophia's room within 15 minutes and remember to stay inconspicuous during the ceremony. Stand in the back for the photos." After Elizabeth left the room, Emily stood in front of the mirror, staring at her tired expression. The only consolation was that her husband, Michael, had contacted her this morning, saying he might return earlier than planned. He might make it to the afternoon reception. Sophia's room was noisy. Bridesmaids were preparing here and there, while hairstylists and makeup artists worked busily. Sophia sat by the window, looking nervous as she gazed out at the garden. "Good morning, Sophia." Emily approached her sister. "Nervous?" Sophia looked at her sister and smiled brightly. "A little, but I can't believe how happy I am to be marrying Daniel." Emily took her sister's hand. "You look truly beautiful today. Daniel is a lucky man." "Thank you, Emily," Sophia said sincerely. "I'm glad you came. How are you feeling?" "Don't worry, I'm fine," Emily said reassuringly. But at that moment, a sharp pain shot through her abdomen, and she caught her breath. "Emily?" Sophia asked worriedly. "I'm okay, just Braxton Hicks," Emily said, waiting for the pain to pass. "Today, let's focus on you." As the ceremony time approached, tension mounted. Emily took her father William's arm as they headed toward the wedding hall. Her father looked at her with a gentle smile. "Emily, are you really all right?" William quietly asked. "You don't look well." "I'm fine, Dad." Emily tried to reassure her father. "The baby will stay in my tummy a little longer." When they entered the wedding hall, Elizabeth approached. "William, you should greet the guests," she said, taking her husband's arm and telling Emily, "You sit down. Don't attract unnecessary attention." Just before the ceremony began, Emily felt another sharp pain, and cold sweat trickled down her forehead. The periodic pains were exactly what the doctor had described as signs of labor. She began to panic, but looking around, everyone had already taken their seats, and the pastor was standing at the front. The music began to play, and Sophia entered, guided by her father's arm. She was radiantly beautiful in her pure white dress, drawing gasps of admiration from the audience. Emily watched her sister's happy expression while enduring the pain. During the exchange of vows, Emily's pain grew increasingly intense. She bit her lip, trying to maintain her composure. A relative in the next seat gave her a concerned look, but Emily could only manage a smile in return. After the ceremony, the photo session began. As instructed by Elizabeth, Emily stood in the back for the group photos. Each time the photographer said, "More smiles," she concentrated on smiling through the pain. "Just the family shots left," Elizabeth declared when Emily was nearing her limit. "Emily, stand up straight. Don't put your hands on your hips." "Mom, Emily's words faltered. "Not now, Emily," Elizabeth said sternly in a low voice. "Just bear with it a little longer." When the photo session ended, it was finally time to move to the reception hall. Emily told those around her that she needed to use the restroom and staggered toward the bathroom. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, trying to take deep breaths. The intervals between contractions were getting shorter and shorter. "Emily," Elizabeth's voice came from behind. "What are you doing? Everyone is waiting for you." Emily turned around and looked at her mother with a face contorted in pain. "Mum, the baby," Elizabeth looked around, and confirming no one was nearby, approached her daughter. "Not now, Emily. You need to be seated before Sophia's speech." But the pain Emily's breathing was becoming rough. "Just endure it for today," Elizabeth said coldly. "It's just a few hours. Doesn't your sister deserve to enjoy her once-in-a-lifetime moment?" Emily reached the bathroom door on trembling legs. While pained by her mother's callousness, she was also tormented by the thought of not wanting to ruin her sister's special day. Just as she was about to open the door, a violent pain struck, and Emily desperately suppressed the urge to scream. "Mom, please help me," she said painfully. Determination colored Elizabeth's eyes. "I'll come back after the speeches. Wait here until then." With no strength left to resist, Emily entered the bathroom. She knelt on the cold tile floor, trying to regulate her breathing. The luxury resort's bathroom was spacious, with a marble sink and a large mirror covering an entire wall. There were no windows, and the only exit was the door, which was now locked from the outside. Calm down," Emily told herself. She tried to reach for her smartphone but remembered she had left it at her seat when rushing to the bathroom. Panic seized her. Suddenly, a violent contraction tore through her abdomen, and Emily clutched the sink. Her face in the mirror was pale, with sweat-soaked hair sticking to her forehead. Her emerald green dress was already damp with sweat. "Help, someone," she strained her voice, but no one could hear her through the thick door in the noisy reception hall. Emily pressed her trembling hands against her abdomen. The baby's movements had become unusually intense. "Not yet, baby. Not now," she whispered, but her body had already begun preparing for birth. In a brief respite between contractions, Emily tried to crawl toward the door. Mom, please," she cried. "Open the door. I need to go to the hospital." But there was no answer. In Emily's mind, the cold expression of her mother, Elizabeth, appeared and disappeared repeatedly. "Endure it. Today is your sister's big day." Those words sounded so cruel. Another contraction hit her, this one even stronger and lasting longer than before. Emily collapsed onto the tile floor, drawing her knees to her chest and curling up. Her breathing was rough, and the hem of her dress was wet with sweat and amniotic fluid from her broken water. "Michael," she called her husband's name. By now, he was probably on his way from the airport to the venue. If he knew she was in this situation, Emily stopped thinking. She needed to focus only on dealing with the pain in front of her. As her sense of time became vague, Emily tried to think about her situation calmly. It was clear that the baby was trying to be born now, but without help, both she and the baby could be in danger. "I need to knock on the door." She crawled toward the door. However, before the next contraction arrived, she couldn't even make it halfway. A wave of pain knocked her down, and Emily lay on the floor, letting out a cry. It was a voice mixed with despair and pain. "Mom, please help me." Outside the bathroom door, the reception was proceeding as planned. Champagne was being poured, and the sounds of laughter and classical music filled the venue. The groom, Daniel, stood up and took the microphone. "Everyone, thank you for coming to our special day." His warm voice echoed throughout the hall. "I especially want to thank my beautiful bride, Sophia's family, Elizabeth, William, and Emily." He hesitated for a moment. "Where is Emily?" A small murmur spread through the venue. Elizabeth quickly stood up and said, "She's feeling a bit unwell and is resting." There was a hint of anxiety on her face. The speech was supposed to end in just a few minutes. She planned to go to Emily after that. In the bathroom, Emily's situation was rapidly deteriorating. The intervals between contractions were now just a few minutes, and she was fighting the instinctive urge to push. Not yet, need to get to the hospital. But her body had already started the natural process. Emily grabbed the plumbing under the sink as if clinging to something. She tried to remember what she had learned in her childbirth preparation classes. Deep breathing, relaxing, not panicking. But being alone in this situation was not something the class had anticipated. "God, protect my baby," she murmured like a prayer. Between pains, Emily began crawling again. This time, she tried to grab a towel from under the sink and spread it on the floor. But when the next contraction hit her, the pain was so intense that she felt her consciousness fading. "Michael," she whispered weakly. And then, the next moment, the urge to push became irresistibly strong. Emily's consciousness began to drift between reality and dreams. She glimpsed her childhood days spent trying hard to be approved by her mother, the small jealousy she felt while celebrating her sister's success, the excitement of first meeting Michael in college, and the joy of learning she was pregnant. Baby. She was now lying on the floor, trying to push according to her instincts. Come, Mommy is here. Outside the bathroom door, in the reception hall, Sophia was looking around anxiously. Mom, Emily hasn't come back for a long time, she said quietly to Elizabeth. I'm worried. Elizabeth patted her daughter's shoulder lightly. She's fine, just resting. Now, let's prepare for the cake cutting. But Sophia's anxiety didn't disappear. She approached Daniel, who had become her husband, and said, I'm worried about Emily. Daniel nodded and said, let's go look for her. At that moment, there was a commotion at the entrance to the hall. Michael Carter had rushed in. He looked around, searching for his wife. Where's Emily? He asked Elizabeth. Michael, welcome back. Elizabeth put on a fake smile. Emily is just resting a bit. She'll be back soon. Michael's expression darkened. Where is she resting? In the bathroom, Sophia quickly answered. But she hasn't come back for over 30 minutes. Michael rushed to the bathroom. Elizabeth, Sophia, and Daniel followed him, running down the hallway. Michael had an ominous feeling. He knew his wife wasn't feeling well. In front of the bathroom door, Michael stopped and knocked. Emily, are you in there? There was no answer. Emily. He knocked on the door more forcefully. Elizabeth arrived, looking tense as she faced Michael. She's just tired. Open the door, please. Michael's voice was stern. It's locked, Elizabeth said quietly. She locked it from inside. Don't lie. Michael's angry voice echoed down the hallway. Emily wouldn't lock it herself. Open it. Elizabeth's hand trembled. She tried to take the key out of her bag, but hesitated when she saw Michael's angry expression. Open it now, Michael shouted, or I'll break down the door. Elizabeth inserted the key with shaking hands. As the key turned and the door opened, a horrifying sight unfolded before their eyes. Emily lay on the floor, unconscious. Her dress was soaked with blood and amniotic fluid, and next to her lay a tiny baby. The baby was moving slightly, but was pale and not making any sound. Michael's anguished cry and Sophia's scream of horror echoed throughout the wedding venue. Call a doctor, hurry! Michael's voice trembled with despair and anger. He immediately knelt down and crawled to his wife and newborn baby. Emily, can you hear me? Emily! He placed his hand on his wife's pale face, gently patting her cheek. Elizabeth stood frozen, facing the terrible reality of what she had done. After screaming, Sophia immediately rushed to her sister's side. Someone help! Sophia cried out. Hearing that cry, Daniel grasped the situation. My uncle is here. Uncle Robert is a doctor. He ran down the hallway, loudly calling his uncle's name. Elizabeth leaned against the wall, covering her mouth with trembling hands. A few seconds later, Dr. Robert Harris arrived at the scene. He immediately understood the situation and responded with professional calmness. Everyone, step back. I need space, he ordered. Daniel, call an ambulance. Michael, look after the child. Dr. Robert checked Emily's pulse and lightly tapped her face. Emily, can you hear me? Emily slightly opened her eyes, looking at Dr. Robert with unfocused eyes. Baby. Her voice was faint. The baby is alive, Dr. Robert said calmly. He quickly examined the baby. Breathing is shallow but stable. We need to get them both to the hospital immediately. Michael picked up the baby and held it to his chest. My son. Tears glistened in his eyes. Bring clean towels, please, Dr. Robert instructed Sophia. She immediately brought hotel bath towels. Dr. Robert quickly wrapped the baby, ensuring body temperature was maintained. The ambulance will arrive in 10 minutes, Daniel returned and reported. Hotel staff and wedding guests began to gather in the hallway. Daniel maintained his composure, saying, Everyone, please return to your seats. Medical staff are handling this. Dr. Robert continued to carefully monitor Emily's condition. There's a lot of bleeding, but it's not fatal. She's a strong woman. Elizabeth approached Sophia on trembling legs. Sophia, But Sophia moved away from her mother. Mom, why? Her voice was filled with anger and sadness. Did you lock Emily in the bathroom? I didn't think she would actually give birth, Elizabeth said in a trembling voice. I just wanted to make sure the ceremony wasn't ruined. Sophia's face contorted with anger. My wedding? You're saying that's more important than my sister's and the baby's lives? Michael stared at Elizabeth, cold anger in his eyes. You almost killed my wife and child. His voice was low and dangerously calm. This is a criminal act. Elizabeth stepped back. I just deliberately put her in a dangerous situation. Dr. Robert offered his professional opinion. Locking a first-time mother alone, you won't escape legal responsibility. The paramedics arrived and quickly moved Emily onto a stretcher. The baby was placed in a special warming device with oxygen supplied. You can accompany your wife and baby, the paramedic told Michael. Michael hesitated for a moment before turning to Sophia and saying, "Call the police." Of course, Sophia nodded. Her wedding attire had now lost its meaning. "We'll come to the hospital right away." Elizabeth looked at William with a desperate expression. He had been obedient to his wife for a long time, but today's event seemed to have changed something in him. "Elizabeth, what have you done?" There was deep sadness in William's eyes. "Endangering our child. I just wanted to make the day perfect," Elizabeth said weakly. "Perfect?" William laughed bitterly. "You've ruined everything." The ambulance departed with its siren blaring. Michael tightly held his wife's hand, whispering, "Okay, you and the baby are safe. You're safe now." Emily smiled faintly before losing consciousness again. The hospital emergency room was standing by, waiting for Emily and the baby's arrival. The situation had already been communicated through Dr. Roberts' phone call. Doctors rushed Emily into the treatment room, and the baby was quickly taken to the neonatal intensive care unit. Michael stood in the hallway with a lost expression. Hours later, Emily woke up in a hospital bed. Michael was sitting by her side, holding her hand. "The baby," those were her first words. "He's doing well." Michael smiled with relief. "He's small but strong. The doctors are amazed." Emily cried. "Mom, the police are questioning her." Michael's voice was cold. "She'll have to pay for her crime." At that moment, the door opened softly, and Sophia entered. She was still wearing her wedding dress, but it was now wrinkled, and her makeup was smudged. "Emily," Sophia approached her sister crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sophia, it's not your fault," Emily smiled weakly. "But because of my wedding," Sophia's words caught in her throat. "You didn't know." Emily took her sister's hand. "And your nephew chose your wedding day. Isn't that special?" Sophia smiled through her tears. "So, it's a boy?" "Yes, little William," Emily answered, "named after Dad." The door opened again, and William entered with Daniel. The old man's face was etched with fatigue and sadness. "Emily, because I was weak." William approached his daughter's bed. "I should have stopped Elizabeth sooner." "Dad," Emily couldn't continue. "Elizabeth was taken by the police," William said quietly. "With Dr. Roberts' testimony, she's facing serious negligence charges." The room was enveloped in heavy silence. Everyone felt the family rifts and distorted love that had led to today's tragedy. "I can't forgive her," Michael said quietly but firmly, "for endangering our son. We all need time." Emily looked at her husband with tired eyes. "All of us." In Emily's hospital room, the family sat quietly, facing the reality of the birth of a new life and the simultaneous collapse of the family. The autumn in Boston was beautiful. Emily sat by the living room window, gently rocking her 3-month-old son, William. The small life had overcome that terrible day and was now growing healthily. His slightly reddish hair resembled Emily's father. How was today? Michael returned from work and kissed his wife and son. "Good," Emily smiled. Sophia and Daniel came to visit. "They're both crazy about the baby." Michael nodded while making coffee. "Sophia is really becoming a wonderful aunt." Since that day, the bond between Sophia and Emily had grown stronger than before. They met several times a week, sometimes talking about the past, sometimes about the future. Sophia and Daniel had submitted their marriage registration without redoing the wedding ceremony. What matters is not the wedding but love. Sophia had spilled her marriage registration without redoing the wedding ceremony. "What matters is not the wedding but love," Sophia had said. "How's Dad?" Michael asked. Emily answered while touching her son's cheek. "He's doing much better. Seems like he's getting used to living alone in his apartment." William Bennett had decided to separate from his wife Elizabeth and had started a new life in a small downtown apartment. He came to see his grandson 3 times a week, trying to make up for lost time. "And your mom?" Michael's voice was cautious. Emily gazed at the falling leaves outside the window. "I got a call this morning," she said. "The court ordered her to do community service and undergo psychological counseling." She continued while holding her son's small hand. She also kept apologizing. She sounded genuinely remorseful. Elizabeth Bennett was placed on probation and required to undergo psychological counseling. Her most feared social reputation had plummeted, and she was distanced from the charity network she had built over many years. Ironically, what she feared most was losing her reputation, but through her own actions. That's exactly what she had brought upon herself. "Do you plan to see her?" Michael asked carefully. Emily was silent for a long time. "I don't know yet, but someday, for little William's sake." Emily's heart was complex. Anger and hatred toward her mother still remained, but at the same time, becoming a mother herself had brought new understanding. Her mother's obsession with perfection might have come from Elizabeth's own past traumas and anxieties. That didn't justify her actions, but provided a clue to understanding them. "Christmas is coming." Michael placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. "What do you want to do?" Emily took a deep breath. "I'd like to invite the whole family, Dad, Sophia, and Daniel, and Mom too." Michael looked surprised. "Really? True healing begins with forgiveness." Emily smiled slightly. "And little William needs a grandmother, not a perfect grandmother, but a loving one." That night, Emily took out her diary and began to write. "Dear son, the day you were born was the most frightening and simultaneously the most beautiful day of my life. You showed strength in the midst of difficulty. Your birth left deep wounds in our family, but also taught us the true meaning of family." She looked up at the starry sky outside the window. The wounds were deep, but were gradually healing. Perhaps there is no such thing as a perfect family. There are only people who have the courage to face the truth through love and forgiveness. Little William smiled faintly in his sleep. The future was uncertain, but Emily had one certainty. She would do anything to protect this small life. That was a mother's love. Even if she herself was wounded, that love would never disappear. Emily gently kissed her son. "Good night, my angel." Her voice was gentle. "Mommy will always protect you, I promise."